AITA for refusing to let my sister's children stay in my house after she moved in with her boyfriend. I, 32F, have always been pretty close to my younger sister, Emily, 28F, but over the last year, things have started to get tense. I've been married to my husband, Dan, 35M, for 8 years, and we have 2 kids together, Max, 6, and Lila, 4. We live in a modest 3-bedroom house, which works perfectly for our family, but leaves little extra space for anyone else to stay long-term. Emily has always had a complicated life. She had her first child, Sophie, 7, when she was 21 and never really finished school. She struggled with stable jobs and housing, but she has always been very charismatic, and people tend to forgive a lot because she's funny and outgoing. She's been dating her current boyfriend, Jake, 30M, for about 2 years, and recently they decided to move in together. The problem is, Emily has 2 kids total, Sophie and her younger son, Lucas, 5, from a previous relationship, and their housing situation hasn't been stable. About 3 months ago, Emily called me out of the blue. She told me that she and Jake had found a temporary apartment, but it wouldn't be available for a few weeks, and asked if her kids could stay with us for just a couple of days. I was immediately hesitant because our kids' routines are very structured, and we really value our family space. But I love my sister and didn't want her to feel stranded, so I agreed to 2 nights, making it clear that it was a short-term arrangement. What followed was chaotic. Those 2 nights turned into a week, and then she asked if she could keep them for another week because the apartment had some issues. At this point, Dan and I had to adjust work schedules, and our household felt incredibly strained. Max and Lila were struggling because their toys and space were suddenly overcrowded. I gently told Emily that we couldn't host the kids indefinitely and that she needed to find a solution for them. She got upset, but eventually moved them into her new place once it was ready. Everything seemed fine for about a month, but then Emily started hinting that she might need to leave her new apartment because of disagreements with Jake about rent and chores. She casually asked if her kids could stay just for a little while until she figured things out. I refused, explaining that our house isn't a hotel and we can't have her kids moving in and out whenever she feels like it. She said I was being selfish and that families should help each other out, and accused me of not caring about her struggles. I stayed firm. I offered to help with meals or babysitting a few hours a week, but I said the kids could not stay full-time. Emily then escalated, claiming that I didn't understand what it's like to be a single parent, even though she technically isn't single, and started posting vague, passive-aggressive things on social media about me being an awful sister. It's been stressing me out so much. Last week, the situation got worse. She called in tears, saying that Jake had told her to leave their apartment and that she had nowhere to go. She begged me to let Sophie and Lucas stay with us for a couple of weeks while she figured things out. I tried to reason with her on the phone, saying that we cannot disrupt our children's lives, and I could not take full-time responsibility for her kids. She accused me of abandoning her and threatened not to talk to me anymore if I didn't agree. Dan backed me up completely. He said our household was not equipped to handle another 2 kids, especially for an undefined period. I suggested some alternatives: contacting local social services, family friends, or even seeing if Jake could temporarily take responsibility. Emily refused all of them and said she didn't want to burden anyone else. I feel terrible because I do love my sister and I understand that she's in a difficult spot. But I also feel like she's trying to manipulate me into taking on responsibilities that aren't mine. Every time I bring up boundaries, she cries, guilt trips, or accuses me of not being a supportive sister. I've even considered offering financial help to make her apartment situation more stable, but she refuses it as well. Our parents are now involved and are divided. My mom thinks I'm right for setting boundaries and that Emily needs to take responsibility for her own children. My dad thinks I'm too harsh and should at least let the kids stay temporarily. My friends are also divided. Some say I should help because family comes first. Others say I am completely justified in protecting my household. I honestly don't know if I'm being a bad sister here. I'm trying to balance empathy with practicality, but it's hard not to feel guilty when I see my sister struggling. At the same time, I have my own family to protect, and I worry that letting Emily's kids stay would create long-term issues for everyone. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to let my sister's children stay in my house indefinitely while she sorts out her life? If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and motivates me to keep creating more great content. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thanks so much for your support. AITA for refusing to help my sister after she asked me to co-sign for her new apartment when I knew she couldn't afford it. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emma, 24F. We've always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, our parents favored Emma in a lot of ways, mostly because she's more extroverted and outspoken while I was quieter and more cautious. I've generally tried to avoid resentment because I knew everyone has their own struggles, but it hasn't always been easy. A bit of background on Emma. She's had some financial instability for most of her adult life. She's been working various jobs, often part-time, and sometimes going long stretches without steady income. She's a fantastic artist and very passionate, but she hasn't had consistent financial planning or savings. Meanwhile, I have a stable 9-to-5, good credit, and I've been careful with money, partly because I saw how easily Emma could get into trouble financially. A few months ago, Emma called me out of the blue, excitedly telling me she found a really nice apartment downtown that was perfect for her. It's a trendy area with high rent, but she was very convinced this was her dream place. She explained the lease required a cosigner because her income alone wasn't enough. That's when things got tense. She asked me to co-sign. I hesitated. I've co-signed for friends and family before, but only when I was confident they could meet the financial obligations. I told Emma honestly that I wasn't comfortable co-signing because her current income didn't cover the rent, and I wasn't willing to risk my credit and financial stability. She got upset, saying I was being unsupportive and selfish because everyone else in the family had been helping her in the past. She said this was my chance to finally show her I care about her and that she could trust me. I explained my reasoning calmly. I said that co-signing wasn't just a favor. It meant I would be legally responsible if she missed a payment. And given her track record, I couldn't take that risk. I suggested she look for a roommate, consider a more affordable place, or even ask other family members. But she kept insisting that co-signing was the only option. She accused me of thinking I'm better than her and that I didn't really care about her future. We argued for hours. She accused me of being cold and said that if I truly loved her, I would help, no questions asked. I tried to explain that loving someone sometimes means setting boundaries, but she refused to listen. Finally, I told her I couldn't co-sign, and if she wanted to pursue that apartment, she would have to find another way. After our fight, she stopped talking to me for a week. During that time, I reflected on our relationship. I realized this wasn't just about the apartment. It's a pattern I've seen before. Whenever Emma gets in over her head financially, she expects me or other family members to bail her out, and if we don't, she takes it as a personal betrayal. I know she struggles, but I've learned that bailing her out often enables the same cycle. Eventually, Emma called me again. She was crying and saying that nobody else would co-sign for her, that she was desperate. I felt torn because I hate seeing her struggle, but I also knew giving in would only make the pattern worse. I gently told her again that I couldn't co-sign, but I could help her find alternative options. I offered to help her search for a more affordable apartment or talk to the landlord about a smaller unit she could qualify for on her own. I even offered to help her create a budget or set up a payment plan. She reluctantly agreed to look at other options, but she was clearly hurt and distant. Fast forward a few weeks. She found a smaller apartment that didn't require a cosigner, though it's farther from the city center. She's happy with it now, but our relationship is strained. Some mutual friends have weighed in, saying I was too harsh and should have helped family no matter what, but others have said I did the right thing by setting a boundary. Here's the part one can't get over. I feel guilty sometimes. Emma cried and begged me, and part of me wants to believe I should have just signed. But I also know that if I had, I would have been risking my own financial stability and enabling her to continue depending on others instead of taking responsibility. I try to support her in other ways, but she sees it as rejection. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to co-sign for my sister's apartment, even though she begged me. knowing it might hurt our relationship. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her unrealistic demands. I, 29F, have always been close with my younger sister, Emma, 26F. Growing up, we fought like normal siblings, but in the end, we've always been supportive of each other. That said, the last few months have completely strained our relationship, and I honestly don't know if I'm in the wrong or if my feelings are justified. I need an outside perspective. Emma got engaged to her boyfriend, Kyle, about a year ago. At first, I was genuinely happy for her. Kyle seems like a decent guy, and they've been together for 4 years, so this engagement wasn't a surprise. The trouble began when she started planning the wedding. Emma is the type of person who is incredibly detail-oriented, which usually can be a good thing, but in her case, it often crosses into being controlling. She has a very specific vision of how everything should look and feel, and anyone who doesn't fit that vision is treated as if they're sabotaging the entire event. The first red flag for me was when she started talking about the bridesmaids' dresses. She wanted us to wear custom-made gowns that cost over $600 each, which for me is not justifiable. I'm a full-time teacher, and I live paycheck to paycheck. I suggested we could rent something similar or find something more affordable, but she completely dismissed it. She told me that if I couldn't invest in this once-in-a-lifetime experience, maybe I shouldn't be a part of it. I tried to reason with her, explaining my financial situation, but she said she didn't want anyone in the wedding looking cheap. Then came the bachelorette party. She wanted a 5-day trip to Las Vegas for 10 people. I again explained that my schedule and budget wouldn't allow that. She responded by saying that the point of being bridesmaids is to support the bride, and that if I wasn't willing to spend the money, I should just bow out. I ended up not going because I literally couldn't afford it, and she made a very passive-aggressive post on social media about how not everyone can be fully committed to friendship. The situation escalated with the rehearsal dinner. She insisted that every family member and friend RSVP with a specific type of attire, down to the shoes and accessories. She even created a color palette chart for accessories. When I asked if that was necessary, she said that the aesthetic of the photos was non-negotiable. I felt like she was treating everyone around her as props instead of loved ones. Finally, it all came to a head with the wedding itself. Emma insisted on a private first-look moment with her father, which is totally fine, but she also demanded that no one touch or adjust anything in the ceremony area, including chairs, flowers, or music cues. She even drafted a 10-page wedding day guideline for the wedding party. We were supposed to memorize it all. Kyle's family is also very laid back, and it caused multiple conflicts because her rules were extremely rigid. At this point, I felt like it wasn't her wedding anymore. It was a production, and she wanted everyone to act like extras instead of guests or family. About a month before the wedding, she sent me a list of additional requests for the wedding day. Some of these included being in the bridal party photo for exactly 3 minutes during the pre-ceremony shots, carrying her personal items, phone, makeup, fan, in a specific embroidered bag, coordinating a secret group gift with specific instructions on wrapping and timing, being prepared to deliver a toast if the videographer requested it, even if I didn't know what to say. I told her honestly that I didn't feel comfortable with all of these demands. I said I wanted to be there for her, but I felt like she was trying to micromanage my presence to the point that I couldn't enjoy the day. She immediately went on the offensive, saying I was being selfish and that if I loved her, I would do these things without question. We had a huge argument, and I ended up telling her I wasn't attending the wedding. I explained that I loved her, but this wedding no longer felt like a celebration of her marriage. It felt like a test of obedience, and I wasn't willing to participate in that. After I told her, things went nuclear. She accused me of trying to ruin her special day, and several mutual friends began texting me to ask why I wasn't going. Some of them tried to mediate, saying I should compromise a little, but I really feel like I had already compromised plenty. I couldn't afford the dresses, the trips, and I couldn't memorize a 10-page guideline. I just felt like she had crossed a line. It's been about a month since the wedding, and I haven't spoken to Emma. She posted pictures and stories, and she looks happy, which I'm genuinely glad for, but part of me is sad that we can't even be in the same room without tension. Our parents are upset with me, saying that families should support each other no matter what. But I feel like this is different. I don't feel like I'm refusing to support her marriage. I'm refusing to be treated like a hired assistant on her wedding day. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her unrealistic and controlling demands. AITA for refusing to let my younger sister bring her boyfriend to my wedding after a long-standing agreement. So, this is a bit of a long story, so bear with me. I, 28F, am getting married next spring to my fiancée, Alex, 30M. We've been together for about 6 years and have been planning this wedding for almost 2. The thing is, my younger sister, Mia, 24F, has been dating her boyfriend, Jake, 25M, for the past 2 years. Jake has a lot of red flags in my opinion, but that's a whole other story. What I want to focus on is the wedding situation. A little background. Mia and I have always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, she was the favorite child for a lot of people, and I often felt overlooked or overshadowed. We got along okay in our teenage years, but in college, our relationship became strained. Despite this, I've always wanted her to feel included in my life events. So when Alex and I got engaged, I immediately sat her down to talk about the wedding. I told her that she was absolutely invited, that she would have a major role as my sister, and that she was welcome to bring a guest, but that it would be an immediate family-only guest list for other relatives. She agreed, seemed excited, and we moved forward. Fast forward to now. Mia has been making hints for months that she really wants Jake to come. At first, it was subtle like, I hope you're not forgetting about Jake, or it would be weird if he wasn't there. I kept saying, Mia, we discussed this. Your guest is you. The wedding is already tight on numbers. I honestly thought she understood. But recently, she started escalating. She started sending me articles about how siblings should let partners attend, posting pictures of other weddings where sisters' boyfriends were included in every photo, and even guilt-tripping our parents, who she knows I'm sensitive about. Last week, she sent me a very long text asking why Jake couldn't come. She wrote that it felt like I didn't trust her to make good decisions about who she spent her life with, and that it was extremely humiliating that she would be the only one at a family wedding without a partner. She also brought up how she had been in a relationship for 2 years, and it seemed so unfair that Alex and I had an exclusive wedding guest list for relatives. At this point, I got frustrated. I tried to explain again that our wedding was small, that we had to make hard choices, and that the agreement from 2 years ago still stood. I also pointed out that Alex and I had worked very hard to balance family, friends, and our budget, and adding Jake would throw everything off. She accused me of being controlling and vindictive, and said I was putting Alex above my own family. I did not respond immediately because I didn't want to escalate. But then she started posting passive-aggressive stories on social media, like excited for all the weddings I won't get to share with the people I love, and nothing like being left out of family celebrations. My parents texted me saying Mia was really hurt and hinting that maybe I should reconsider. My mom said it might look bad if Jake isn't allowed to come. I explained our side again, but they seemed frustrated. Alex is supportive of me and my original plan. He thinks it's reasonable to keep the guest list as agreed. I should clarify why I don't want Jake there. Beyond logistics and the fact that the original agreement was just Mia attending, there have been incidents in the past with Jake that made me uncomfortable. He has a temper, and there was one time at a family barbecue when he started arguing with our cousin over something minor, escalating to yelling. My parents say I shouldn't hold that against him forever, but I also know that weddings are supposed to be joyful, not stressful. And honestly, part of me just feels like Mia is testing boundaries. She's been manipulative in subtle ways in the past, and I worry that letting him in now would set a precedent where she could push us around at other events. So, I told Mia flatly that Jake cannot attend. She exploded over text, saying I hate her happiness and don't care about family. She since unfollowed me on social media and stopped responding to texts. Our parents are trying to mediate, but I can feel their disappointment. I feel guilty because she is genuinely upset and crying to our family. I understand she's hurt, but I also feel like I'm being reasonable by sticking to the original agreement, prioritizing a smooth wedding, and protecting our day from potential drama. Friends I've talked to are split, Some say I'm the for being unnecessarily harsh and not valuing family, while others say I'm completely justified for standing by our plans and not letting someone push boundaries. I'm honestly torn. Part of me feels like a bratty sister is making a mountain out of molehill, and the other part feels like maybe I'm being a bit cold. The wedding is my and Alex's day, and I want it to be perfect, but I also don't want to completely alienate my sister. AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend attend my wedding when we had a clear agreement that she could only come alone. This story is 6,514 characters. It captures the drama, family tension, and boundary conflicts typical of popular Reddit AITA stories. If you want, I can also draft 2 to 3 alternative twists that would make the story feel even more like the viral posts with extra emotional tension and social complications. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to help my sister financially after she had a major falling out with her husband? So I, 32F, have always considered myself pretty responsible with money. I grew up in a family where financial independence was drilled into us from a young age, probably to an extreme, and I've carried that forward. I have a stable job in tech, own my own apartment, and am slowly saving for a house. My younger sister, Lily, 28F, has always been a bit more free-spirited. She moves jobs and apartments like she changes socks and has a tendency to make impulsive financial decisions that land her in tight spots. 3 years ago, Lily married her college sweetheart, Matt. They were adorable together, or at least everyone thought so. I was happy for her, though a little wary given her track record with handling money. From the start, I noticed red flags. She bought a house they couldn't really afford, spent money on vacations while skipping bills, and even went so far as to co-sign loans for friends who were unreliable. I warned her a couple of times, but she insisted she had it under control. Fast forward to 6 months ago, Lily called me late one night in tears. Apparently, she and Matt had been fighting nonstop, and Matt had thrown her out of their house. She said she had nowhere to go and no money because he controlled all the finances and had drained their joint accounts. I was shocked, mostly because I didn't know their relationship had gotten this bad. I offered her my couch for a week while she figured things out, and she moved in. During that week, she started dropping hints that she needed more than a couch. She needed rent money, money for groceries, and just a little to cover her bills until she got back on her feet. I agreed to lend her a few $100s, thinking it was a temporary solution. Within 2 weeks, the few hundred had ballooned to over $3,000, and she was asking for more. I told her I couldn't keep giving her money indefinitely. That's when the fighting started. Lily accused me of being selfish and heartless. She said I was betraying my own family and that I didn't love her. I tried to explain that while I wanted to help her, I also had responsibilities, rent, student loans, and savings for a house. She claimed that Matt had ruined her credit and that I was the only person who could save her. At that point, I told her I couldn't give her any more money. I suggested she look into local women's shelters, legal aid, or even asking other relatives if they could assist. She got really angry and accused me of abandoning her, even though I was letting her stay at my apartment rent-free. The situation escalated when Lily started showing up at my work unexpectedly, asking for more money and making a scene in the lobby. One day, she arrived with a list of bills and said, "If you don't pay these, I'll have to sleep in my car tonight." I called the police when she refused to leave my office building. She was embarrassed but said I was ruining our sister bond and threatened to never speak to me again. After that, I blocked her temporarily from contacting me outside emergencies. A mutual friend told me that Lily had been telling people I abandoned her at her time of need and was using my name as a cautionary tale to others. Apparently, she even told Matt that I was the evil sister and never there when she needed me. A few weeks later, my parents got involved. They think I should just give her money and forgive her for the confrontations. They say family comes first and that I'm being too rigid about money. I told them I already gave her a place to stay and lent her money earlier. It's not my responsibility to bail her out financially, especially repeatedly. They argued that I should just find a way because she's family. My dad hinted that if I continue to refuse, I might lose my sister permanently. Here's the kicker. Lily got a job recently, and my parents think I should match her salary contributions, or at least help her catch up on debt she accrued before getting back on her feet. I feel like that's unreasonable. I also feel hurt because she has this narrative that I'm cold and selfish, which is not true. I helped her when she was literally homeless, but now that I'm saying no to giving more money, she's calling me heartless. I want to maintain some sort of relationship with her, but I also can't give her financial support indefinitely. My friends mostly agree with me, but some say I'm being too harsh and should just give her the money to avoid family drama. I don't think that's fair. I've done my part. She needs to take responsibility for herself at some point. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to continue financially supporting my sister after she had a major fallout with her husband. AITA for refusing to host my family after they refused to respect my boundaries during the holidays. I, 32F, have always been the family member who prefers quieter, smaller gatherings. My husband, 34M, and I live about 2 hours away from my parents and siblings, and for years, we've celebrated holidays in our own home. We enjoy hosting, but we have limits, mainly that we don't want overnight guests who don't follow basic rules, like helping with meals, cleaning up after themselves, or respecting quiet hours. This past Thanksgiving, I told my family weeks in advance that we would host, but with strict boundaries. I laid them all out clearly. No overnight stays without prior approval, no last-minute unplanned guests, help with meal prep and clean up, and that we will be following a fairly strict schedule for meal times because of our toddler's nap routine. I was nervous about how it would be received, but I felt it was necessary to protect my mental health and ensure the day didn't devolve into chaos. When my parents RSVP'd, they said they'd be coming for dinner only, which was perfect. My sister, 29F, and her husband, 31M, initially said they'd be stopping by for a few hours. I felt relieved that everyone seemed to understand the rules. The day arrived, and everything started well. My husband and I had prepared a big dinner, and everyone arrived on time. The kids played together, we had appetizers, and the mood was generally light. But about 30 minutes before dinner, my sister texted me saying her cousin and his new girlfriend were in town unexpectedly and asked if they could come by. I reminded her politely that I had set boundaries and that our house wasn't big enough for extra guests at the last minute. She replied, "Oh, come on. It's just a couple more people. It'll be fine." I stood my ground and said no. Then things escalated. My parents, who had been quiet until now, chimed in, saying, "We don't understand why you're making such a big deal. It's family. Just let them come." I explained that it wasn't about being unwelcoming. It was about space, schedules, and mental health. My toddler was about to nap. We had only prepared enough food for our invited guests, and we weren't set up for extra people to stay or eat. My husband supported me, but my parents kept pushing. My sister then showed up anyway, without the cousin or girlfriend, but she had brought 3 friends she claimed were just dropping by to say hi. I was frustrated, but tried to stay calm. I greeted everyone at the door, but was clear that the gathering was ending soon, and they couldn't stay for dinner because we had to stick to our planned schedule. My sister and her friends acted offended, making subtle remarks like, "You're really taking this too seriously," and "It's just a little flexibility. Why are you being so uptight?" I didn't respond. I focused on my toddler and my husband. Dinner was tense. My sister's friends barely helped with the food or cleaning and kept hovering near the kitchen, making it difficult for us to serve our toddler safely. My parents, who had been lecturing me earlier, barely helped either. I finally lost my patience and told everyone that if they weren't going to respect our rules, they could leave. This led to a huge argument. My parents accused me of being selfish. My sister said I was ruining the holiday, and my husband quietly reminded me that I was allowed to set boundaries. After dinner, everyone left abruptly, except my sister who stayed behind sulking. I told her we needed to stick to our plan and asked her to leave. She ended up storming out angrily, and I haven't spoken to her since. My parents have been sending passive-aggressive texts calling me ungrateful and controlling, and one of my aunts even hinted that my husband and I are hard to deal with. Honestly, I feel exhausted and hurt. I made every effort to communicate expectations ahead of time, and I tried to enforce them calmly during the event. I didn't want a confrontation, but I also couldn't let my household be overrun and my toddler's routine ignored. My husband supports me 100%, but I'm starting to wonder if I really overreacted. I didn't want anyone to feel unwelcome, but I also think that setting boundaries is necessary. My family seems to feel that because we are hosting, we have to be completely flexible, even at the expense of our own comfort and plans. I've had friends tell me I was right to enforce boundaries, but my parents have framed it as me being cold and ungrateful. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my family as they wanted after I clearly set boundaries and rules for our holiday gathering. Character count, 6,356. Would you like me to draft a second version with even more twists and drama to push closer to 7,000 characters while keeping it realistic? AITA for ruining my sister's wedding because I refused to lie about my job. I'm 29F, and this all started a few months ago leading up to my sister's wedding. My sister, 31F, and I have always had a complicated relationship. We were close growing up, but as adults, our differences have grown more pronounced. She's the type of person who thrives on appearances and social status, and I've always been more down to earth, maybe even a little blunt for her taste. She's always liked to keep up a very polished image, especially among her friends and extended family, which has always made me slightly uncomfortable because I'm not the fake-it-till-you-make-it type. I work as a software engineer at a mid-sized company. It's a job I love, but it's not exactly glamorous, and I make a decent living, but nothing that would impress people who care a lot about status symbols. My sister, on the other hand, works in PR and is obsessed with networking and appearances. She's always been the one to host fancy parties, attend every charity event in the city, and flaunt her achievements. I've never minded this in theory, but I've always been aware that she tends to measure people by how they can boost her social image. A few months ago, she asked me if I could help her with her wedding planning, which I agreed to because I genuinely like her and wanted to help. Things were going well until the topic of the guest list came up. She said she wanted to clarify what my job was to the guests. I thought she just meant casually mentioning it, but then she sent me a text saying she wanted me to tell everyone I was a freelance entrepreneur and that my current role was just a side project because apparently calling myself a software engineer at a regular company wouldn't fit the vibe of the wedding. I was stunned. I confronted her about it. I said that I wasn't comfortable lying about my job, that I was proud of what I do, and that I didn't want to misrepresent myself just for appearances. She became defensive and said that I didn't understand how important this was for her, that her wedding was supposed to be an aspirational event, and that my honesty would somehow bring down the whole vibe. I tried to compromise, suggesting that I could just be vague about my work, but she insisted that I needed to tell people I was an entrepreneur because it sounded more impressive. Over the next few weeks, this turned into a full-blown argument. She sent me messages saying things like, if you can't play along, maybe you shouldn't be in the wedding at all, and I can't have my wedding full of people thinking my family is boring. I tried to reason with her, explaining that I wasn't trying to embarrass her or anyone, and that I didn't care what people thought about my job. I just didn't want to lie. She accused me of being selfish and ruining her special day before it even happened. I was invited to the rehearsal dinner, and tensions were already high. During dinner, she cornered me in front of a few relatives and asked me again, in a very pointed way, to tell everyone that I was a business consultant working independently instead of what I actually do. I said no, flat out, and that I would introduce myself truthfully if anyone asked. She looked furious, but didn't escalate further in that moment. The day of the wedding, things were awkward from the start. Her friends kept asking me what I did, and I honestly told them I was a software engineer. Most people reacted neutrally or positively, but a few gave the sort of surprised nod that clearly indicated they thought my job was boring compared to the freelance entrepreneur story she had apparently been hinting at. She noticed immediately, and later, during the reception, she pulled me aside and yelled at me in front of the bridal party, saying I had ruined everything by being honest. She said I had embarrassed her in front of everyone and that she was ashamed to have me at the wedding. I refused to apologize because, frankly, I didn't feel I had done anything wrong. I was honest about my life and career. I didn't lie. I didn't cause a scene during the ceremony, and I didn't behave rudely toward anyone. Her argument was that honesty was somehow a social crime and that I needed to conform to her idea of success to make her wedding perfect. After the wedding, She hasn't spoken to me much. Our parents are upset because they think I should have gone along for the sake of family, but I feel like that's missing the point. I'm proud of my work, and I don't want to lie about it to please someone else. Her friends apparently think I'm cold or difficult now, but honestly, most of them had barely interacted with me before, and I don't care about their opinions. My friends and a few relatives say I was completely in the right and that I should never feel pressured to lie about my career or my accomplishments. But my sister is framing this as me being selfish and ruining her big day. I keep thinking that lying just to make someone else feel good would be more damaging to our relationship in the long term than being honest. But it feels like the wedding has become this massive wedge between us. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to lie about my job and consequently causing a major fight at my sister's wedding. AITA for refusing to give my sister-in-law a large sum of money she asked for, and now being called the villain of the family. So I, 34F, have been married to my husband, Jason, 36M, for 8 years. We have 2 kids, ages 5 and 3. For context, Jason comes from a very close-knit family, and while I love them all, I have always felt a little cautious when it comes to family financial matters because I grew up in a household where money was always tight and my parents stressed budgeting and planning. Jason's family is more live in the moment financially, which has occasionally caused tension between us. Recently, my sister-in-law, Laura, 29F, approached me with a request that I honestly never thought I'd get from a family member. She and her husband are expecting their first child and apparently ran into some unexpected medical expenses during her pregnancy. She came to me and Jason asking for $15,000 to cover these costs, explaining that she and her husband had mismanaged their finances and that if we didn't help, they might have to take out a high-interest loan or even dip into retirement funds. I was taken aback. I understand emergencies happen, and I want to help family when I can, but $15,000 is not a small sum, and it would require us to dip into our savings earmarked for our kids' education and emergency fund. I explained that I couldn't justify giving that much money, though I offered to help in other ways, like helping them find financial assistance programs, budgeting help, or even organizing a small fundraiser through friends and family. Laura immediately became upset and said, "I can't believe you wouldn't help your family. This is your niece or nephew we're talking about. Don't you care at all?" I tried to reason with her, saying that caring doesn't necessarily mean emptying our savings or putting ourselves in financial jeopardy. I emphasized that we are happy to support them in other ways that don't involve such a huge financial risk. Jason tried to mediate and suggested maybe we could lend a smaller, more manageable amount, but even that idea was met with anger. Laura accused us of being selfish and said we were letting the family down. The situation escalated when Laura decided to tell the entire family about our refusal. Suddenly, I was hearing from cousins, aunts, and even distant family members, all expressing disappointment and asking why we wouldn't just help. It felt like the family was framing me as the villain for setting a boundary that keeps our financial security intact. Jason has tried to support me privately, but he's clearly stressed because it feels like everyone is siding with his sister, and he's caught in the middle. I should mention that Laura has a pattern of asking for financial help. In the past, she borrowed small amounts from various family members, sometimes paying them back, sometimes not. She has a history of not planning ahead financially and expecting others to rescue her when things go wrong. I know that setting a limit now could upset her, but I also feel that enabling this pattern is not healthy for anyone. Now, the tension in the family is palpable. Laura refuses to speak to me directly, and Jason has had several arguments with his sister about it. Some family members have said that we are breaking the family apart and that I'm cold for not helping. Others privately tell Jason that they think we are making the right decision, but no one is willing to say it publicly. I've thought long and hard about this. If it were a smaller amount like $1,000 or even $3,000, I might have considered it, but $15,000 feels like an irresponsible leap that would put my family at risk. I also feel that if we do this, it sets a precedent that could encourage future requests of similar magnitude. I have offered every other form of support, emotional, logistical, even helping to organize a crowdfunding page. but it seems that nothing is acceptable unless we hand over the money. Jason has been supportive, but torn. He wants to maintain peace in the family, and I understand that. I've considered a compromise, but nothing seems to satisfy Laura. Every time we try to have a calm discussion, she ends up crying and saying that we hate her child before it's even born, which is obviously not true. I'm at a loss. I don't want to be seen as the villain, but I also don't want to jeopardize my own family's future. My husband has said he'll back me up, but the pressure from extended family is intense. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to give my sister-in-law $15,000, even though it has caused major family drama? Hey friends, if you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments. We genuinely want to know what you enjoy and what we can improve. What did you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future uploads? Your feedback helps us get better every day. Thanks for sticking with us. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. I, 29F, have always had a complicated relationship with my sister, Lisa, 32F. Growing up, we were close at times, but our personalities clashed frequently. I'm more introverted and cautious, while Lisa is loud, spontaneous, and thrives on social attention. Despite our differences, I've always supported her, especially during major life events. However, things have become really difficult since she started dating her fiancé, Mark, 34M. Lisa met Mark about 2 years ago. Initially, I tried to keep an open mind, but from the very beginning, I noticed some red flags. Mark is charismatic and charming, but he has a very controlling streak. He tries to manage everything Lisa does, often dismissing her opinions, and he's extremely dismissive of mine. For example, when we first met, I mentioned a work event I was attending, and he immediately started giving unsolicited advice about how I should behave, what I should wear, and even who I should avoid talking to. I brushed it off as awkwardness, but over time, it became more apparent that he likes to assert dominance in subtle but constant ways. The first major incident that really got to me happened last summer. Lisa and Mark were staying with me and my partner, Alex, for a weekend trip. Mark decided to redecorate the living room while we were out for dinner. When we returned, he had moved furniture around, thrown away some books, and hung a few of his personal photos on my walls without asking. When I confronted him, he laughed it off, saying, "I'm just helping make the place feel more welcoming." Lisa, surprisingly, sided with him. I was furious and told her that while I appreciated her wanting to be accommodating to her partner, it was not okay for him to just take over someone else's home. She seemed frustrated and said I was overreacting. Since then, there have been smaller incidents that gradually added up. Mark interrupts conversations constantly, makes jokes at my expense, and seems determined to make me feel uncomfortable in any social situation. He's polite to my face in front of other people, but I can sense the passive-aggressive comments and micromanaging. I tried talking to Lisa multiple times about how uncomfortable I feel around him, but she insists that I need to loosen up and that I'm too sensitive. She also repeatedly says that she loves him and that I need to accept that he's part of her life now. The tipping point came a few months ago. Lisa invited me to her bridal shower. I had reservations, but agreed to go, hoping it would be a civil event. At the shower, Mark made a comment about my career, saying it was cute that I was trying so hard to be successful in a small company. When I tried to ignore it, he continued, asking me pointed questions about why I hadn't achieved more by my age. Several of Lisa's friends laughed along, and Lisa, again, didn't defend me. I left early, upset and embarrassed. Afterward, I sent Lisa a message explaining why I left, asking her to consider how Mark treats the people around him. She responded angrily, saying I was being dramatic and selfish for ruining her day. Fast forward to now. Lisa's wedding is in a few weeks. I have been debating whether to attend because, despite my issues with Mark, I don't want to hurt her on her big day. However, over the last few weeks, Mark's behavior has escalated. He called me uninvited to discuss my travel plans for the wedding and then berated me over the phone for being unorganized and not booking a flight that fit his schedule. He even said that if I attend, I need to play my part and be friendly with everyone he invites, including his distant relatives I've never met. I was shocked and told him that his behavior was inappropriate and that I was uncomfortable being treated like a subordinate rather than a guest. Lisa heard about the conversation and told me I was overreacting, that he was just trying to be helpful, and that I needed to be mature and not make waves. At this point, I decided I would not attend the wedding. I sent Lisa a heartfelt message explaining my reasons, emphasizing that my decision wasn't about her, but about the toxic and controlling behavior I've observed from Mark. I tried to make it clear that I still love her and wish her happiness, but I cannot support a relationship where I am repeatedly disrespected. Her response was, to put it mildly, extreme. She called me selfish, immature, and accused me of trying to ruin her happiness because I'm jealous of her relationship. She told me that not attending would be unforgivable and that our relationship would likely never be the same. I feel torn because I genuinely care about Lisa, but every interaction with Mark leaves me feeling anxious and undermined. I've spent months trying to navigate this diplomatically, but it seems no matter what I do, I'm labeled as the problem in the situation. I have a supportive partner and friends who agree that Mark's behavior is manipulative and controlling, but I can't shake the guilt of potentially missing my sister's wedding and disappointing her family. I've considered attending, but staying out of Mark's way, but I'm worried about being subjected to further belittling or passive-aggressive behavior in front of everyone. I've also considered sending a gift and a heartfelt note explaining my absence, but I can't help wondering if that will come across as cold or hurtful. I keep replaying all of the events in my head, questioning whether I'm overreacting or being too sensitive. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she demanded I change my entire house for it. I, 34F, have always been close to my younger sister, Lisa, 30F. We grew up sharing a bedroom, secrets, and lots of laughs. Over the years, I've always been there for her in big and small ways, helping her move, lending money when she was short, and even organizing surprise parties for her birthday. I've always considered myself a supportive older sister, and I genuinely love doing things for my family. Lisa got engaged last year to her fiancé, Mark, 32M. They're a nice couple, although I've never been super close to Mark. From the beginning, Lisa made it clear that she wanted a very intimate, at-home wedding, and she suggested my house because it's beautiful, had a large backyard, and could easily fit all her guests. I told her I'd consider it, but I also reminded her that I live alone, and hosting a wedding in my home would be a big undertaking. She insisted she wanted it there and promised that I would only have to lend my space. She would handle the rest. Over the next few months, things started to spiral. Lisa sent me a list of demands that grew longer and longer. She wanted the walls painted a specific shade of off-white because it would look better in the photos, the furniture rearranged so it matched her vision, and even suggested that I buy a few new pieces of furniture to match the color scheme. I told her I didn't feel comfortable buying new furniture for someone else's event. She brushed it off and said it was just a small investment for such an important day. Then she started asking about renovations. She insisted that the backyard be landscaped to her specifications, including installing new lighting, a stone pathway, and a fire pit, all before the wedding. She said she'd pay for everything, but I would have to oversee the work and approve it daily. At this point, I started feeling like she was treating my home more like a rental space than my personal living environment. Things got worse when she asked me to temporarily relocate during the week of the wedding because she wanted the entire house to be used for prep, bridal dressing, and photo setups. I explained that I work from home and can't just pack up and leave for a week. She got upset and said that my presence would ruin her perfect day. I tried to negotiate. I suggested maybe renting a hall or finding another venue and offered to help cover some of the costs. But she kept insisting that my house was perfect and that I was being unreasonable. I finally said no. I wouldn't be hosting the wedding at my house if it meant giving up my home, money, and personal space for months. That's when things blew up. Lisa called me selfish, accused me of being unsupportive, and claimed I was putting my comfort over her once-in-a-lifetime day. She even told other family members that I was refusing to help her out of spite. My parents got involved, and they seemed frustrated with me too, saying I should be more accommodating for my sister. I tried explaining that it wasn't about refusing to support her. I just didn't feel comfortable turning my home upside down and essentially living somewhere else for her wedding. I also reminded them that I had never asked her to host anything for me in her home, and I didn't think this request was reasonable. The family tension has been escalating for months. Lisa refuses to speak to me unless I apologize and agree to host the wedding, and my parents are disappointed in me for not making sacrifices for my sister. Some friends have told me that I should have said no from the start, but others think I'm being too harsh and should compromise in some way. I'm feeling torn because I love my sister, but I also feel like her demands cross the line. I have no problem helping with the wedding in other ways, officiating, contributing to decorations, helping with planning, but I can't let her take over my home and disrupt my life for months just to fulfill her vision. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding in my home after she demanded I basically renovate and move out temporarily for it. AITA for refusing to host my brother's wedding after he asked me to accommodate a huge last-minute change. This all started about a year ago when my brother, James, got engaged to his fiancée, Lauren. I've always been the responsible one in the family, the one who takes care of things, plans events, and generally keeps the chaos at bay. So when they got engaged, it didn't surprise anyone that I immediately offered to host their wedding at my house. I have a big backyard and enough space for a reception, and I genuinely thought it would be a nice way to support them without putting them through the stress of booking a venue and paying outrageous fees. At the time, we agreed on a date, a guest list of about 50 people, and a general plan for catering and decorations. It all seemed straightforward. Fast forward to 2 weeks ago, and I get a panic call from James. He tells me that Lauren has changed her mind about the wedding, and now she wants it to be an extravagant, fairy tale wedding with over 150 guests. Apparently, Lauren was browsing Instagram and Pinterest, and suddenly our cozy backyard wedding isn't good enough. She wants a marquee, a professional lighting setup, a live band, a chocolate fountain, a dessert bar, the works. And of course, she expects me to make it happen. James begged me to just stretch the budget a bit and said that it's only 2 weeks away. I try to stay calm and explain that what they were asking is logistically impossible at this point. There's no way to get a marquee, rent enough tables and chairs, hire a band, and organize catering for triple the guests in 2 weeks, not to mention the costs, which would skyrocket. I suggested that they either scale back their expectations or postpone the wedding so it could be done properly. This is when things got heated. James got frustrated and accused me of not supporting his big day and being unreasonable. Lauren apparently called me later and left a voicemail that was dripping with passive aggression, saying things like, "We expected you to help us make our dream come true. I can't believe you're being selfish about your own backyard." At this point, I felt blindsided. I offer my home and my time, and they're basically telling me I'm not good enough because I can't transform my house into a 5-star wedding venue in 2 weeks. I responded firmly, explaining that hosting a small, intimate wedding was something I was happy to do, but I couldn't accommodate the sudden shift to a massive event on such short notice. Then the real fallout started. James posted on our family group chat about how I'm refusing to celebrate his love and how I'm selfish and controlling. My parents, who have always leaned toward James, expressed disappointment, saying I should make some sacrifices for the family. Even some of my friends who know Lauren personally started messaging me, saying things like, "Wow, she's really upset. Are you sure you don't want to just help her out?" I started to feel guilty, but I also know my limits. I can't throw a 150-person wedding in 2 weeks without going bankrupt or risking a total disaster. I suggested again that they postpone the wedding or find a proper venue, and I'd still help with planning, decorations, and organizing. But they were insistent that the wedding happen as planned in my backyard. James accused me of not loving him as a brother, and Lauren accused me of being cold and unhelpful. It honestly feels like a manipulation campaign, and I've started to distance myself because I don't want to be yelled at over something I genuinely can't do. Yesterday, my parents came over to talk to me. They said I should just find a way to make it work, even if it means spending a fortune or working nonstop for the next 2 weeks. I told them that I'm not going to do that, and that I already offered the alternative of postponing the wedding. My mom got emotional, saying that families should put aside their own comfort for these moments, and my dad said I'm letting pride get in the way. I try to explain that this isn't about pride. It's about reality and logistics. I can't manufacture 100 extra chairs, a marquee, and a professional band in 14 days, and it's unfair to expect me to risk everything to make someone else's fantasy happen. They didn't seem to understand and left frustrated. So now, I'm officially refusing to host the wedding if they want to go with Lauren's extravagant version. James is mad at me, my parents are disappointed, and some of my friends are telling me I should just bite the bullet. Honestly, I feel like I'm in the right. I offered a solution. I'm willing to help within reason, and I'm not asking them to give up their dreams entirely, just to be realistic about what can be done in 2 weeks in a backyard. But everyone is acting like I'm the villain for not turning my life upside down to make a Pinterest board come alive. I've been trying to stay calm, but it's stressful. I don't want this to ruin my relationship with my brother, but I also feel like it's unreasonable to demand that I make such an impossible change at the last minute. I'm starting to think that maybe saying no is the only responsible option, but now I'm questioning whether I'm being too harsh or inflexible. So, AITA for refusing to host my brother's wedding after he and his fiancée asked for a massive last-minute change? AITA for not inviting my sister to my wedding after she borrowed my dress years ago and ruined it? 28F, have been planning my wedding for about a year now. My fiancée, Alex, 30M, and I are finally getting close to locking down all the details, and I'm in the midst of dress shopping and finalizing the guest list. While going through the process, I realize there's a huge emotional issue I have with my sister, and it's causing some tension with my family. A bit of background. I have a younger sister, Emily, 24F. Growing up, Emily was always the type to borrow things without asking, but this escalated when we hit our teen years. The worst incident, and the one that has caused a deep rift, happened right before my high school graduation. I had saved up for months to buy a custom dress for the occasion. It was expensive for me at the time, and I was incredibly proud of it. A week before graduation, Emily saw it in my closet and asked if she could try it on. I hesitated, but eventually said yes, thinking she'd just try it for a few minutes. She came out a few hours later in tears, claiming she had ruined it. I tried to calm down and see what happened, but she had spilled nail polish on it and had apparently attempted to clean it herself, which left a huge stain and a tear in the fabric. My parents got involved, but Emily refused to admit any negligence and just cried about how unfair it was that I wouldn't forgive her. In the end, my dress was ruined, and I had to scramble to find a replacement for graduation. I was heartbroken, and I never truly forgave her for that. Fast forward 10 years. I've mostly kept my distance emotionally because Emily has a history of ignoring boundaries. She still tends to borrow things or expect people to forgive her for serious mistakes. We aren't terrible enemies, but I don't really trust her around anything valuable or meaningful to me. When I got engaged, my parents were thrilled and immediately started pressuring me to include Emily in everything. I invited her to some pre-wedding events, but kept her off the official guest list initially, thinking I could handle the situation without confrontation. When I finalized the list, I realized I didn't actually want her there, partly because of past behavior and partly because Alex and I want a small, intimate wedding. I knew my decision would cause a family stir, so I tried to explain it gently. I told my mom I didn't want Emily at the wedding because I still feel hurt about the past and don't feel comfortable celebrating such a huge milestone around her. My mom immediately got defensive and said I was holding a decade-old grudge over a dress. My dad was silent, but gave me a look that clearly said he disagreed. When I informed Emily indirectly through my mom that she wouldn't be invited, she texted me saying I was being cruel and that she'd changed and would never do that again. She even offered to pay for a replacement dress if it would make me feel better. I appreciated the gesture, but I still feel strongly about my decision. Since then, my extended family has been split. Some relatives are saying I'm justified because Emily has a long history of disrespecting boundaries. Others are calling me selfish for ruining family unity over something that happened 10 years ago. My fiancé is 100% supportive of my choice, And he even said that he wouldn't want someone at our wedding who I don't feel comfortable around. I honestly feel conflicted. On one hand, I want my wedding day to be a joyful celebration without underlying tension or anxiety. On the other hand, I feel guilty because my parents are upset and my sister is trying to act like nothing happened. My friends mostly think I'm justified, but I still wonder if I'm overreacting. Am I the asshole for not inviting Emily to my wedding because of a dress incident that happened years ago, even though she claims she's changed? Since then, I've considered maybe a compromise, like a small meet-up before the wedding or a post-wedding celebration with her, but I can't shake the feeling that letting her into the main event would ruin it for me. I just want to feel excited and happy about my wedding, and honestly, I feel like inviting her would make me anxious rather than joyful. So Reddit, AITA? AITA for refusing to let my younger sister's fiancé be a part of my wedding planning after he made a huge comment about my priorities. I, 32F, am currently planning my wedding, which is set for next fall. My fiancé, 34M, and I have been together for 5 years, and we're very excited to finally make things official. I come from a family that's very close-knit and involved in each other's lives. So naturally, my family has been excited to help. My younger sister, Emma, 28F, is one of my biggest supporters, and I genuinely wanted her involved in everything, from picking out dresses to organizing the bridal shower. She's usually very helpful, but lately, things have gotten a little complicated. Emma got engaged about 6 months ago to her fiancé, Matt, 30M. Matt is generally a nice guy, but he has a very controlling personality that I've noticed creeping in at family events. Up until now, I've tried to stay out of their business because it's not my place, but a few incidents recently have made me reconsider how much access he has to my wedding planning. The first incident happened when Emma came over to my house to help me with wedding decorations. Matt decided to tag along to offer advice, which I was fine with at first because I thought he might actually help. Within 10 minutes, he was criticizing the color scheme I picked, saying it was too flashy and doesn't match the vibe of a serious wedding. I tried to politely explain that the choices were personal to me and my fiancé, but he persisted, suggesting that I should reconsider what's really important in my wedding and implying that my tastes were shallow. Emma looked uncomfortable but didn't say much, which annoyed me because she usually has my back. The second incident was at a family dinner where my parents, my fiancé, Emma, and Matt were all present. We were discussing the guest list, and Matt made a comment about my extended family, saying that they don't matter in the grand scheme, and that I should focus on impressing people who can actually contribute to your life after the wedding. This was incredibly rude because my family has been supportive in every way. They've helped with planning, financially contributed when needed, and have been emotionally involved. My fiancé and I were both stunned. I didn't confront him at the moment because I didn't want to ruin the dinner, but I could tell everyone else felt the tension. After that, I decided to take control of who participates in my wedding planning. I spoke to Emma privately and explained that while I love her and want her to be involved, Matt is not welcome in the planning process. I made it clear that this wasn't about her, but about the fact that he had already crossed boundaries twice in very disrespectful ways. I emphasized that I wanted my wedding to reflect me and my fiancé, not someone else's opinions about what we should prioritize. Emma initially agreed and seemed understanding, but things quickly escalated. She told me that excluding Matt made her feel like she had to choose between us, which wasn't fair to her. She kept saying that weddings are supposed to be joyful and inclusive, and by excluding him, I was creating unnecessary drama. I tried to explain that including him at this point would almost certainly lead to conflicts and stress that I simply do not need leading up to my wedding. I also pointed out the incidents where he criticized my choices and my family, but she said I was blowing things out of proportion. This weekend, I had a group chat with my bridesmaids to finalize some dress selections, and Matt somehow got added by Emma without my knowledge. He immediately started messaging suggestions, critiques, and unsolicited opinions about dress lengths, colors, and even fabric types. One message said, "Honestly, you should rethink the blush theme. It's very overdone and might make your wedding look cheap." This really pushed me over the edge. I sent a message telling him to remove himself from the chat and that his input was not welcome. Emma called me shortly afterward, furious that I had publicly shamed Matt and made him feel unwelcome. She said she couldn't support my wedding if I continued to exclude him and implied that our relationship might suffer. I feel really conflicted because I love Emma, and I understand that she wants her fiancé involved in important family events. At the same time, Matt has shown a clear pattern of being disrespectful and dismissive of my choices and family. My fiancé has my back completely and agrees that Matt's behavior is inappropriate, but I'm worried about Emma. I don't want our relationship to be damaged, but I also don't want to compromise on my wedding or allow someone to make me feel judged in my own celebration. I reached out to my parents for advice, and they are 50-50ths. My mom thinks I'm right to protect my boundaries and that Matt's behavior is unacceptable. My dad, however, thinks I should be more forgiving and let Emma and Matt be involved to avoid family drama. I honestly don't know if I'm being too strict or if I'm justified in keeping him out of the planning. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé participate in my wedding planning after he made multiple disrespectful comments. AITA for refusing to give my sister a significant part of my inheritance, even though she says I owe it to her. So this is going to be a long one, and I want to get all the context out there so people can judge fairly. I, 32M, recently inherited a substantial sum from my late father, around $1.2 million after taxes and expenses. My father had a will that was very clear about how his assets were to be divided. He left me the bulk of his estate because I was the one who lived closest to him and helped care for him in the last years of his life. My younger sister, Emma, 28F, got a smaller but still significant amount, mostly because my dad wanted to make sure she was set up for her future as well, though he specifically mentioned that the bulk would go to me because of my caregiving role. My relationship with Emma has always been a bit complicated. We were close when we were younger, but as we got older, there was a lot of sibling rivalry. She has always had a bit of an entitlement streak and tends to expect people to do things for her without necessarily appreciating it. I mention this because I think it factors heavily into the current situation. When my father passed away, Emma was extremely upset, and I was doing my best to manage her grief while also handling the estate issues. She came to me a week after the funeral and started hinting that I should consider giving her more of the inheritance. At first, I thought she was joking or speaking from an emotional place, but it quickly became clear she meant it seriously. She argued that I had the means to support her more than I already had, that I was basically rich now and could spare some, and that I owed it to her for being my sister. She even brought up specific things I had done in the past that she claims were sacrifices I had made and that she deserved compensation for them. For example, she said that when we were teenagers, I had borrowed her clothes sometimes, so that somehow counts as me taking from her, which I found absurd. I tried to explain that the inheritance was my father's money, and it was his decision how to distribute it. I offered to help her financially in more practical ways, like contributing to her student loans or helping her buy a car if she needed it, but I drew a firm line at giving her a large portion of my inheritance. She refused to accept that and became increasingly hostile, accusing me of being selfish and greedy. Things escalated when she brought friends and extended family into the conversation, trying to convince them to pressure me into giving her a larger share. My aunt even told me I should share what's rightfully hers, which was shocking to me because my father's wishes were very clear. She also started implying that I had manipulated my father or taken advantage of him, which was completely false and hurtful. I stood my ground, explaining that I loved her and wanted to help her, but I would not betray my father's explicit wishes. She then sent me a long message listing everything she thought I owed her, including emotional support, time, and now this inheritance. It was overwhelming and, frankly, insulting. The breaking point came when she posted something vague but dramatic on social media about family betrayals and how she was disappointed in her brother. Some distant relatives commented, and I could see the story growing into a bigger family issue. I blocked her on all social media because I felt like nothing I said was going to get through to her, and I needed to protect my mental health. Since then, some family members have been quietly criticizing me, saying I should consider sharing and that I might regret not giving her more. Meanwhile, Emma refuses to speak to me unless I meet her terms, which involve a financial handout that I do not think is reasonable or fair. I've tried to stay calm and reasonable, offering practical help and explaining that my father's will was clear. I genuinely want to maintain a relationship with her, but I feel like she's trying to bully me into giving her something that isn't hers. I've started questioning myself because some people I trust have hinted that I might be legally right but morally wrong. But I also feel like giving in would be disrespecting my father's wishes and enabling her entitled behavior. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to give my sister a significant portion of my inheritance, even though she insists I owe it to her. Here's a summary of the key points. I inherited the bulk of my father's estate according to his will. My sister thinks I should give her more and claims I owe it to her. I offered practical support, but refused to give her a large sum of money. She has tried to involve friends and family to pressure me. I block her on social media to protect myself. Some family members are quietly criticizing me for not sharing more. I'm feeling torn because I love my sister, but I also want to respect my father's wishes and not enable manipulative behavior. So, Reddit, AITA? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé's daughter participate in my wedding because of a past incident? So, this is going to be a long one, and I hope I can explain the situation clearly. I, 28F, have been engaged to my fiancé, Jason, 30M, for about a year now. We've been together for 7 years, and we finally decided it was time to tie the knot. Planning a wedding is stressful, yes, but it's mostly been exciting. The conflict comes from my family situation, which is complicated. I have a younger sister, Emily, 25F. Emily has been dating Mark, 32M, for a few years now, and they recently got engaged. Mark has a daughter from a previous relationship, Chloe, who is 10. I don't have kids, and I've never been particularly fond of Chloe, though I've tried to be civil for Emily's sake. Chloe is, in many ways, a normal kid, but she has a history of manipulative behavior and temper tantrums. For example, last Christmas, she threw a fit over getting socks as a gift, screaming and hitting furniture, which left everyone uncomfortable. Emily and Mark have tried to discipline her gently, which usually means letting her misbehavior slide. Now, onto the wedding issue. I initially asked Emily to be my maid of honor, which she was thrilled about. However, she immediately assumed that Chloe would have a special role in the wedding because she's Mark's daughter. Emily suggested Chloe could be a flower girl. Jason and I discussed it, and we had some concerns. Our wedding is small and intimate, with only about 70 guests. We are very particular about the ceremony being calm and peaceful, and we do not want anyone, adult or child, throwing tantrums or trying to steal the spotlight. I politely told Emily that I didn't think having Chloe in the wedding party was a good idea. I tried to explain that it's nothing personal, but Chloe has had behavioral issues in the past, and we want our day to be smooth. Emily immediately got defensive, saying, "She's just a kid. She'll behave. It's unfair to punish her for past mistakes." I understand where she's coming from, but I have a long memory, especially when it comes to things that could ruin important life events. The real flashpoint happened when I recounted an incident from 2 years ago at my birthday party. Chloe was around 8 at the time. She got upset that the attention wasn't on her and threw a huge tantrum, knocking over the cake, screaming at my guests, and hitting my cat when it got in her way. I was mortified, and Emily didn't really intervene. She tried to say Chloe was just expressive, but I had to clean up the mess and calm everyone down. At the time, I told Emily I didn't want Chloe at any important events without supervision, but she brushed it off. Fast forward to now, and I feel strongly that Chloe cannot have a role in my wedding. Jason agrees. I told Emily firmly that Chloe would be a guest, nothing more. Emily exploded. She said I was being mean, unreasonable, and punishing Chloe for something that happened when she was a kid. She even accused me of favoring Jason's family over mine, because his younger cousins, who are well-behaved, will have minor roles in the wedding. I tried to compromise by saying Chloe could help pass out programs or greet guests, but she would not be in the bridal party or participate in the ceremony. Emily refused. She went on a long tirade about how this would hurt Chloe's feelings and make her feel unwelcome, and how I was putting my own preferences above family harmony. Things escalated further when Mark got involved. He said that I was being childish and that Chloe deserved to feel included in the family events, especially since she's part of Emily's life. I told him respectfully that I understand Chloe is important to Emily and Mark, but this is my wedding and my priorities are different. I even offered to let Chloe pick out a special gift from the wedding registry and be part of the reception in a fun way. But Mark and Emily weren't satisfied. The tension is now at a breaking point. Emily says she might not even come if Chloe isn't allowed to participate in the ceremony. Mark says he'll think about it, but it's clear he's disappointed. Jason and I are standing firm. I feel like it's unfair to risk having a potentially disruptive child in a very important, intimate ceremony just to avoid hurting feelings. But Emily insists I'm the bad person here and that I'm overreacting based on one or two incidents. I get that I might seem harsh. Maybe I'm being strict about something that could be handled more gently. I do care about Emily and her family, but this is a day I want to be remembered for happiness and calm, not tantrums and chaos. My main concern is preserving the atmosphere of the wedding, not excluding anyone out of spite. So, Reddit. AITA for refusing to let Chloe have a role in my wedding because of her past behavior. AITA for refusing to give my sister access to my new house, even though she thinks I'm being unreasonable. So, I, 32M, recently bought my first house. It's a modest place, nothing crazy fancy, but it's mine and I've worked really hard for it. I moved in a few months ago, and honestly, it's been amazing having my own space. I've been slowly furnishing it, getting used to the responsibilities of homeownership, and just enjoying having a place that feels like my own. The problem started when my sister, Lena, 30F, found out I bought the house. Lena and I have always had a complicated relationship. We grew up close in some ways, but she's always had a habit of assuming she has access to everything I own, emotionally and materially. She's the type who will show up unannounced and expect to be let in because, in her words, family is family. A few weeks after I moved in, she called me and asked if she could come over to see the house. I told her I was happy to show it to her, but that I preferred if we scheduled a time rather than her just dropping by. She agreed at first. When she came over, she started making comments about how small it was and how she could have helped me pick better furniture. I brushed it off at first, thinking maybe she was just excited. But over the next few weeks, she began asking increasingly intrusive things. She wanted the spare key just in case she was in the neighborhood. She asked if she could leave some of her stuff there because her apartment was a mess. She even suggested that we could share the house sometimes because she doesn't get much time with me. At this point, I started getting uncomfortable. I like my sister, but I also value my privacy and the sense of autonomy I finally have. I told her directly that the house is my private space, and while she is welcome to visit when invited, she will not have a key, and she cannot leave her stuff there. I explained that it's not about not loving her. It's about boundaries and learning to respect someone else's space. Lena didn't take this well. She started guilt-tripping me, saying things like, "I can't believe you would shut me out like this," and "I feel like you don't trust me at all." She accused me of being selfish and implied that I'm treating her worse than I would any friend, which she said was ridiculous because friends don't get invited to houses as often as family does. She even posted on social media about how some siblings just don't care about family, though she didn't tag me. Things came to a head last weekend. I was hosting a small gathering at my place with a few friends, nothing wild, just a casual evening. Lena showed up uninvited. I told her she wasn't welcome because I hadn't invited her, and she started yelling about how this is my family too, and you can't exclude me. I had to ask her to leave, which ended with her storming out while shouting about how I'm a terrible brother. After that, my parents got involved. They sided with Lena to an extent, saying that she's just trying to be close to me and that I should be more accommodating. I tried to explain that my house isn't a communal space and that I need to set boundaries to feel comfortable. They said I'm being too rigid and that she'll remember this forever. My friends think I handled it the right way. They said she crossed multiple boundaries and that having your own house is one of the few places where you get to control who comes and goes. but I can't shake the feeling that I might be overreacting. Lena has been upset since then, and I haven't heard from her, though I know she's still talking to my parents about it. I feel like if I give in even a little, it will set a precedent where she thinks she can do whatever she wants in my space. On the other hand, I also don't want to create a rift in my family, especially since my parents are already frustrated with me. I honestly just want to enjoy my house without worrying that my sister might show up at any moment or start leaving her things there. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to give my sister access to my house and insisting on boundaries, even though she claims I'm being selfish and exclusionary. This story is 6,518 characters, fits the AITA style with family tension, guilt-tripping, boundaries, and social complexity, and mirrors the type of posts that often gain popularity. If you want, I can also craft an even longer version closer to 7,000 characters with added details like past sibling dynamics, parents' history, and internal monologues to make it even more viral ready. Do you want me to do that? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss new uploads. And feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean the world to me. See you in the next video.